did
Doesn't
say
matter.
gymnastics today. Willow noticed that I hadn't paid attention to something. She did. And she went, Daddy, you weren't watching. You're on your phone. And I went, yeah, I was texting Hayley. She's telling her how well you're doing. And she went, okay. And she ran off.
Yeah.
And then the mother beside me went, we're thinking.
David
Hello, mate.
Eastgate. We're back.
Did I lose you?
No,
I
we're
lost-
here.
Hang on.
Yeah.
No, there you are.
Yep.
Close all the other windows and maximize that. Oh, I'm going to chuck on some stocks too.
Because we could tell I was
I gotta get the fucking gun. I gotta get the guns out if we're going public. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a little cold. It's getting a little chilly, so I'm gonna put my woolen socks on.
Whereabouts are you now?
And also, I've got a beanie that I could wear, but I'm gonna rep the Sit Down Comedy Club.
Yeah,
definitely.
nice. Do it.
That's great. Hey, if you ever want to, you can't see in your feed, I don't think, to my left. I love hats, certain styles of hats, and I've got like 12 just sitting to the side there. So if you do want to send one through, I'll rotate it through the shelf.
Oh, excellent!
Yeah.
So more than happy
cool.
to.
I've got some Dave Eastgate hats that I'm gonna be reprinting soon. So.
Yeah,
Perfect.
nice.
Perfect.
Mm.
Well,
Great
pleasure to
work.
have you here, Dave. This
Yeah.
is
So
the Journeyman.
that's Josh there.
I'm Josh.
Josh. Aiden.
Right. Aiden, I know Aiden.
Yep.
Now, Aiden, we work together, but what on?
So the way that I first met you in the flesh was Dr. Doctor, but it was Ryan Johnson's 40th birthday when you were playing at that. So that was where we first met in the flesh. But I kind of knew of you around the traps through Ryan, through, the show.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, that was the first time we actually met in the flesh. And then I got to see, I was going to say your alter ego, but I think it's sort of more honestly you than anything else that you do, isn't it? Being that.
The karaoke guy.
Yeah. I mean, so this is actually what I was going to ask you was how.
We've been recording this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
This will end up in the show.
Oh, it is
I hope.
You're going to edit it.
Yeah. So my question to you is basically when you meet someone for the first time and they say, "So what do you do, Dave?" What's your go-to answer?
Depends on the person.
Yeah.
Cab drivers, I never say comedian. I learned that rule
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
certain
I'm
sort
a
of parties,
musician.
I guess you'd go to. It'd be like, oh, tell us a joke.
Yeah, it's either tell us a joke or they'll tell you a joke.
Uh-huh.
I do remember, I can't remember the joke, but I remember the cab ride where I said, I'm never saying this ever again because it was like a cab ride from Ride to, it was like, yeah, I think it was for the Habibs.
Yeah.
So it was like, what's that? Not Ride, but just, the Hills. Anyway,
The
whatever
Hills
it was.
District,
It
yeah.
was this really long cab ride. And this guy told one of those jokes that has a really meandering setup
Yep.
to a really shitty punchline. So it's almost like Norm Macdonald's really good at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know the comic from
Yeah,
McDonald. Like,
yeah.
He's really good at these meandering setups. But the setup is, if you're going to do a meandering setup, it's still got to be entertaining along the way. And the
Mhm.
meandering is kind of part of the joke.
Yeah.
It's like the It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
aristocrat's
Okay.
joke.
I was
It
literally
was-
thinking that, yeah, it's all the delivery. It's not the punchline. It's that comedian's
Yeah.
interpretation.
Was it that one of those type of jokes, or was it meant to still have quite a good, like a Norm Macdonald style left field punchline, or was it meant to just dissipate at the end and the journey was the point?
No, well, even Norm Macdonald does it so well that the punchline ends up being just like not left field, but like a dad joke, like the aristocrats.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, okay.
the joke is just, the punchline is just so not worth.
No, and that's
There's
why
a-
it's also
there's a-
funny as well. It's like, what? This is the punchline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. But it was the meandering that he sucked at. And I was just
Well, saying about Norm Macdonald, like I know through when you see him on the late night live shows and stuff, when he does a little interview and he'll just come out and just say that long meandering joke that he does, but he's entertaining to watch. That whole time he's laughing, he's kind of, he's fucking with you and the host. The host knows he's being fucked with, and that's the fun part. And it's like, yeah, it was just a birthday cake. And they're like, what the fuck? We sat through all that for that?
But there's an art to it.
And you just clap. So there's this saying in comedy that I love, which is the view has to be worth the climb. So if you're going to take someone on a long setup, the view has to be worth that. However, in the Norm Macdonald case, it's the little vistas along the way to the view that you really appreciate. Yeah. And it's like the view is the slide down, back down. Does that make sense?
I love that analogy as well, because I mean, it's, if you were talking about a joke where it was literally just working to the punchline, it'd be like taking someone to a lookout blindfolded and, just leading them along the way and then all of a sudden going, there it is. Yeah. But when you talk about someone like Norm Macdonald and I guess most other really great comedians, there's 30 stops on the way to that punchline that you're like, oh, that's, I know, it's continuing.
Yeah, totally. So in answer to your question, comedian is definitely one of the last things I tell people that I do. Yeah. Depends who it is.
Well, everyone also thinks they're funny, which they are. Like everyone's kind of funny on occasions and everything, but they don't differentiate between being funny and actually being professionally funny and creating a thing on demand all the time as well.
Well, exactly. And some of the funniest people I know are not comedians. And some of the least funny people I know, me included, are comedians. Like, I'm definitely throwing myself in that group of people. And Aiden is like some of the funniest people I've ever met are stuntmen.
Okay, what do you think that is then about that?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But do you know Mark Turl? Mark Turl's he's in America now. I knew him at Universal Studios in Japan. He was a motocross guy. And then in Japan, he was in the Waterworld show, so he was a jet skier. But so he comes from that. And there's now that I'm back at, I'm working with shows. I'm doing stunts again. Yeah. Talk about the Journeyman thing. I started doing stunts when I was like 16 at Dreamworld. Yeah. In the Bushranger show. Yeah, and right. I went to Movie World, and I don't know if you knew this.
Yeah, but that's the other thing was I thought of you just as, it's hard to say just as actor, comedian, musician, because I mean they're three very, very complicated jobs in their own right.
But they're very closely related. It's a different thing.
But then when I saw you performing with the Stunt Show at Movie World, I sort of went, hang on, this, and I actually had to do a double take. Like when I saw it click, I thought at first you just had photos taken, at the show. And then I was like, no, that's the workshop. Like this is behind the scenes. This is genuinely being involved in the stuff. Yeah, and then I had to do another deep dive on you to understand why the two worlds were meshing. It was,
So I started as a stuntman at the age of 16 at Movie World. At Dreamworld, doing the Bushranger Stunt Show. Yep. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that. I don't know if anybody watching this is old enough to remember that. Bushranger Stunt Show in the 90s, there was lots of stage combat, jumping through windows, jumping off roofs, jumping off things, lots of dive rolls and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty basic stuff. But as a 16-year-old, getting paid to do that was incredible. Also, after I started as a 16-year-old, they changed the age limit to 18. Like they were like, okay, that's
so retroactively because of you or coincidence?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely because of that. But
you didn't get fined or
then I
anything,
worked
obviously. You obviously were performing. They liked what you did.
Oh, I do this joke on stage where I say that I got fired from all the major theme parks, but I I quit Dreamworld and I was fired from Movie World, but I got myself fired from Movie World for being. It's a long story, but I'll keep it short. But I put a kid in a headlock when I was dressed as Sylvester the cat.
So it was a cuddly character.
I didn't only do.
Well, he could have been dressed in total yellow and just thought mistaken for canary or something.
So I love the. Did you have the tattoos at the time?
No.
Because I think like, that would have been hilarious. Of like the big cuddly Sylvester, and it's like that Sylvester just put my kid in a headlock. Who's in that suit? And then the suit comes off, and it's a tattooed guy with piercings. Like,
no, it wasn't quite like that. But no. So with those theme parks, you've kind of got to be, which is, I really do appreciate. Looking back, I really do appreciate that 10 years working in theme parks because the theme park entertainment departments are so small that you kind of have to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You have to do a little bit of hosting, a little bit of chaperoning the characters, a little bit of character suit work, a couple of stunts, and you have to do characters like what they call atmosphere characters, where you go out on the street and you get photos with the guests. So you dress up as, like, at Movie World, I was Austin Powers. That's, groovy, baby. And you're just taking photos of people and you're just quoting the show and you're improvising with people. Like Dreamworld, one of my favorite characters was the pram mechanics. Me and my mate used to get dressed up in these mechanic overalls and ride around on skateboards and do pit stops on prams and wheelchairs. and you got fake like toy tools and stuff, and you do these little pit stops and you do the interaction, you get a photo and blah blah blah. And then some days you're Kenny Koala.
Yeah.
And back then, this is pre OH&S, Kenny Koala used to ride a skateboard.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I'm very proud to say that I did a bigger ollie as Kenny Koala than I've ever done out of character. I don't know something about the furry feet, but I got some air on that thing. So one day, when you're a furry character, you're always getting photos of people, and then you just got a massive target on your back. You know what I mean? You may as well have a neon sign that says "kick me."
Yeah.
And you actually have parents going, hit him. Well, go on, Jaden, hit him.
It's always a Jaden as well.
Yeah, I actually had a good friend of mine.
Like, hit him, go on.
This is a friend of mine. She was working as I think his name's Luna Bob at Luna Park, and it's a big character, right? And one day she was wandering around with her minder, and the minder got distracted, and a couple of lads just beat the crap out of her. Like, we're talking, she was on the ground getting stomped basically. And then she threw the head off, and they suddenly realized they were beating up a girl. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, we thought you were a guy." And they ran off. And that's the world. These guys,
pregnant women that were attacked. I know pregnant women that were attacked and punched and hit, and like
go to a Japanese amusement park. That shit's not gonna fly,
man. If I had have done, if I had gone to an amusement park with my dad and had have done anything like that, my dad would have belted me. If I had have gone and punched Sylvester wouldn't have had a chance to do anything back. I would have already been backhanded, probably over the bench. Like, I don't understand it.
100%. And so what you would do to combat that kind of stuff was that, you give a really firm handshake. when you greet them. You give them a really firm handshake, and if they're still, you're getting a photo, so you're all arms around each other, and you would just slowly bring the kid into a headlock.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, it's show dominance.
In fact, I'll tell you one thing. Oh my God, I haven't thought.
This is like amusement park insiders right now.
Yeah, man. So you'd get with kids, right? So kids like toddlers, so like 2 to 3 years of age, like you could grab them by the head and pick them up by the side of the head.
Yeah.
And they just dangle. You don't fling them around.
Sure,
you know what I mean? You're not trying to kill them.
No.
No.
But they need a good photo.
It was great. Because it was for a photo. So you get the 3, 2, 1 lift, or the 3, 2 lift, 1 what? Down.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're the brown bear in Yellowstone, and they're just the people, the audience with the honey, just like, come on.
It's completely harmless. The kids don't mind, and it's a funny photo. But this headlock thing, you give them enough of a headlock to just let them know that you were real and weren't to be messed.
Like I'm a little grom. There's a bigger person above me holding me around the head. I can't really do anything now. Okay, what do you want me to?
Yeah, exactly. So this one day, it's pissing down with rain. I'm in the western area of Movie World as Sylvester the Cat. I'm in a sombrero, this big sombrero. I've got a leather vest on, fake guns. They don't allow, they don't have that at Movie World anymore. No guns.
Okay.
No lights and all that. But you kind of laden. It's even heavier than a normal Sylvester run. You're Western Sylvester, and it's like it's hard work.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Plus the rain.
So under an awning.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus the rain, so we're backed into the corner. And my chaperone is a dancer who doesn't want to be there and is just checking the watch. Luckily, she didn't have a phone back then, so she just couldn't be bothered. There's this kid in a WWF t-shirt, Steve Austin t-shirt, and he's pushing up the kid into me. And there's no supervision. The chaperone's not doing anything. And he's this big bully, and and so I grabbed him in a headlock. Not for a photo. I just grabbed him in a headlock. I grabbed him in a cuddle.
I don't know if actually that sounds worse. So let's just go with headlock.
Let's go with headlock. I think headlock's better. Yeah.
So I get him, and you've got 4 fingers like that.
Yep.
So
the permanent Spock, they call it.
I've grabbed him. Yeah, it's like 4. So that's your middle fingers have gone into his mouth accidentally. Guys. Accidentally.
Yes,
Accidentally, my fingers went into this kid's mouth.
Yeah.
Now, once they're there, I'm an opportunist. Once they're there, I fish hooked him.
Yeah.
And then he screamed. And his parents came running in. And it's so funny you mentioned Luna Park, because this woman came at me and she's like, I used to be Fred Flintstone at Australia's Wonderland, and I know you're not supposed to do that. I'll never forget that. That's a true story. I cannot make that shit up. But and so I got fired from Movie World. But when I was at Movie World, I did the Police Academy stunt show.
Yeah.
So I know. And then from there, I went to Universal Studios in Japan.
Yeah.
And you're right about Japanese.
That's why you can speak fluent Japanese.
Was there a character or a role in the stunt show that was like, everyone, you're the alpha. I am this character. That means I'm top dog. Like I'm the best stunt man here.
Oh, the drivers.
Okay.
And that's I reckon that still goes today on sets. You know, isn't it? It's like, you know. Now, so it was because of COVID. because I was living on the road because before COVID, I was living on the road. I was touring with with the musical Muriel's Wedding,
Yeah.
and I was playing Muriel, obviously,
Yeah,
and
clearly.
so I was on the road, and then COVID happened, and then I kind of moved back with my parents. I went out for like during that whole lockdown period, we'd just come out of lockdown. You could go out. Went out for a drink on the Gold Coast with a guy called Scotty Gregory, who I don't know if you know him. He's a legendary stuntman from the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And he's a Hollywood stunt driver show at Movie World. And him and a guy called Tommy Gillander, who's another old Movie World guy. And they were like, hey, we've got this role at our show. It's the Hollywood Stunt Driver Show. And I'm not a driver by any, I'm not an accredited stuntman either. But yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, so that's why I'm back there. But the drivers that we have in the Hollywood Stunt Driver thing are people like Warren Luff.
Yeah.
Who is...
Yeah, I've driven with Woz. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a car person, Warren Luffy Luff is a legend of the supercar scene.
Yeah.
Podiumed at Bathurst multiple times. Last year, came third last year, came second the year before. So anyway, it's getting worse. But but you know what I mean. So I reckon the drivers would probably be up there. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Them and high fallers maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, apart from Damon Walters, obviously, I don't really think of anyone really being a high fall guy anymore. Like, I think with what we're able to do with wires and, you know, the amount of recomping things that we can do, there's just not the reason to actually take it to that dangerous level. Like when you think of, is it Bob Brown that did the torch, which I think I've played in one of the early episodes, where it's the one stunt that I've watched where I'm just like, I'm not touching that. Like there is no way I would ever do that, where he actually does a torch out of a building where he's about 30 or 40 stories up.
Oh, I remember you showing me that ages ago.
He basically turns, in the air, falls the whole way on fire, hits the airbag that at that point looks like a matchbox. And then once he hits the airbag and he's landed safely, you still got to put him out. So he then has to roll off and actually get on fire. Yeah, he has to then get put out. But I mean,
potentially burning them back.
Yeah. But this is the thing is, for me looking forward as, potentially being a coordinator in the future, if you give me the option between sending someone that I care about off the top of a building where things could go wrong or sticking them on a wire and filming it on a blue screen, I'm going to choose the blue screen every day of the week because I love the knowledge that guy is definitely going to go home to his family at the end of the day. And I think it still takes skill to be able to do it. And like the one that I use as an example is I think it's in Winter Soldier where what's his name? Stunny who's doubling the Winter Soldier, where he actually runs along and in the film jumps off one building, clears a gap between the two buildings, and then lands on the ledge of the next building. And in the film, it looks like a really just hardcore hit because he came running out of, they basically had a shipping container, which was really high up that they'd built to look like the inside of a building. He went running out of that being chased by a cameraman. The pair of them jump out of it and basically the cameraman sails down behind him as he does about a 40-foot fall into a soft ledge and then blue screen beyond it. And it's a huge decel and it's still an awesome stunt. And in the film, it looks brutal. And yet, that so long as the rigging held up and the physics was right, that guy's going home 10 times out of 10.
It sounds like more that you're getting like a gymnastics or a very specific gymnastics skill, like, the battens or something, such high coordination, like a circus routine, instead of having just fling yourself off something now. No, I've got to do wires incredibly skillfully, navigate my body physically and get into these things, which still is incredible skill.
Well, like I had a guy at one point say to me, he's like, aren't you afraid about, with CGI and everything that it's just going to do you guys out of a job? And I went, it's created more work because now there's just infinite possibilities. Like now that we can just film it in a stage, well, we don't need to just have the guy sort of sail through the air like this. What about if he's cartwheeling? So you look at in Aquaman where my buddy Ryan Tarrant basically gets sputtered and you just see him cartwheeling out of the set.
That's a technical term?
Yeah, technical term,
Yep.
sputtered, like stunt nap. But yeah, and it's he without blue screen, that's not working. Like you've got to land him somewhere. You've got to bring him down safely. You've got to.
It's so funny, like talking about specialties. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but I just used to love this guy. I worked with him in Japan, a guy called Trace Sheremy, and he works he's working in Hollywood for a while. I don't know where he is these days, but he's from New Orleans and he's proper Cajun. And he calls himself a ground pounder, but just the way he says it, he's like, I'm a ground pounder. I just always sits in there, ground pounder. But his job was just to get pounded into the ground, but not off the high. Like he would do high falls, but also bar fight scenes where he's just getting flipped on his back, and they have those, you would know, the gator.
Yeah, the armadillos.
Those back support. So it's called a gator because it's kind of like a
Which we should point out, it stops your back from breaking, but there's no cushioning in it. Like it's still the impact comes through. Like I remember talking to someone when I first got into stunts, and I was saying, you get used to the feeling of your lungs bashing your rib cage, and you get to know the difference between where you've landed a bit wrong and it's actually hurt, and all you've done is landed correctly, and everything bounced off your rib cage and gone back to normal, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I did shows in Japan where we did this little Western street show where, I'm not an accredited stuntman, but I had to wear a gaiter, because I was getting thrown on the ground on concrete, 5 times a day. I did the T2 stunt show. Terminator 2 stunt show. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's kind of famous. There's Waterworld, and then there's Terminator 2, and they're quite famous in that Universal. In the theme park world, they're quite famous stunt shows. So
Waterworld's
John
massive.
Connor. Waterworld's Matt. Waterworld is easily the best live stunt show in the world. Sorry, Hollywood Stunt Driver 2.
And the movie's so not appreciated in history, but yet it's the best stunt show.
Crap movie, great stunt show.
Crap movie, the best stunt show. Nello.
Yeah.
Pete Nelson. I mean, what a legend that guy is. And it's been the same show for 20 plus years, 25 years.
Oh yeah.
And it's got everything. It's got high falls, it's got burns, it's got jet skis, it's got water skis, it's got fight curry, it's got rigging, it's flying foxes and ropes and all sorts of stuff. Like it's man, I remember this for the life of me, I can't remember her name. This is 20 years ago. It's 2001. And this woman was playing the lead, and she slipped and fell and landed on her head in this fucking show. And God, she was out for months. Like it was, I'm not even sure if she came back, but it was just, anything can happen in those. There's this place in Osaka called Amerikamura, which is this American village, and it's the hip kind of center of town. And you'd have those big cars. I don't know what I'm not a car guy.
The lowriders with gas lowriders.
The lowriders, and they're bouncing along.
Yeah.
And the dudes are in there. They spin, their big fluffy Jay-Z tracksuits and the whole. And so the reason I met her and met her band is that I was hanging out with these punks that this comedy punk band, which inspired, we might get to that later, but it inspired my comedy band.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still my favorite band to this day, Akainu. Akainu, if you want to look them up.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be showing some stuff as we're doing this.
Akainu. Anyway, so we have to put band in because anyway, whatever. Point is, I'm hanging out with all these punks, and one day I'm walking down the street in Osaka and I hear this bagpipe playing. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Where's this bagpipe coming from? And I'm like, this is fucking weird. So I start just going down alleyways. I'm trying to find the sound. Finally, I see this guy, and he's got a full mohawk, spiky mohawk.
Yeah.
And he's in a kilt playing the bagpipes, and he's got all tattoos and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, this is crazy. And I go up to this guy, and we start talking, and turns out he knows my mates, and you know, we've got all these mutual friends, and he's like, hey man, we need a lead singer for our band. We're a Celtic punk band.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you want to join our Celtic punk band and be the singer? And I'm like, yes. And so they were called, man, I can send you, I've got video of this.
I can
send you video.
Yeah, great. We'll play it. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
I don't know if do you do links and stuff?
Yeah,
like,
we'll definitely. It'll all be there.
Josh, he's a magician. He can throw whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It'll be playing as we're doing this whole conversation. I'll be throwing stuff on there at the same time, so it's all good. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. So anyway, so he's like, I've got this Celtic punk band. We need a singer. Do you want to do it? I'm like, yes, let's go. So I joined this Celtic punk band, and he's on the double bass plus the bagpipes. There's another guy on the bagpipes and rhythm guitar. We've got a lead guitarist who also has a spiky mohawk.
And we're talking real, right? We're not talking like a wig. We're talking they genuinely grown their hair to that length.
So, like that. You'll see it in the pictures anyway.
So, okay, stop for a second. The technicalities of getting a mohawk, I've always thought about that. So, yeah, you would normally just have to have long hair in that center part and then gel it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that'd be annoying.
Gel, eggs, eggs, hairspray.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard to keep that up.
Oh yeah,
the three binding agents of all life.
I've had a mohawk once, and it was just before I joined up to the army, and I knew it was going to be my last chance for a long time to have a crazy haircut, and I went right. I'm going the mohawk, and the funniest thing for me was the different way people look at you on a street. Like you instantly become a different member of society in their eyes. And it happens from you walk into the hairdressers being looked at one way, you walk out of the hairdressers, they're looking at you a completely different way. Because there's this instant thing of like that person does something with their life that means they can have that haircut. Now what the fuck is it?
Exactly. Imagine being that guy, but a white guy with a blonde mohawk in Japan. That talk about the looks, man, that I used to get with my blonde mohawk.
That's awesome.
But I think would you get a really like a lot of positive, like just people noticing, and other guys be like just nodding, sort of like that's cool, like wow, just I don't know, this foreigner, like you when you're in Japan, you're a foreigner, you're just noticeable. Of course you are, but now you're such an extravagant. Notice that they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, look at that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think
it definitely made me stand out because I ended up doing stand-up comedy in Japanese, which This is called the Journeyman.
Yeah.
I've been on so many fucking journeys. I don't know where to start, and I don't know where to take you. But I'll stay on this Celtic punk band thing quickly.
Yeah.
But all these guys we had fiddle, we had a flautist, we had a mandolin guy. I think the fiddle player played the flute as well. We toured to Okinawa. We played heaps of shows in Osaka and Kyoto and Kobe and that area, Tokyo. We did a show in Hiroshima, and there were Japanese skinheads at the show. And I'm not talking scar skinheads. I'm talking neo-fascist skinheads.
Holy
Because
shit.
let's not forget, Japan were
Japan,
the allies of Germany in World War II.
Yeah.
And in Hiroshima particularly, they have this neo-fascist kind of neo-imperialist return Japan to the old Japan skinheads.
Yeah.
And they were at this show. And I was like, and having grown up and seen Romper Stomper and like they're bashing Asians, and I'm like, oh man, there's all these skinheads here. And they're gonna hate me. Because I'm the clone, oppressor and this sort of shit. And we had a massive night